Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in the Gospel of John, chapter 8. We left off with Jesus making a statement that I expanded. In the conversation, Jesus said there were Jews that, as they were listening to him, started believing in him. Then Jesus put a truth bomb with them and says, okay, in essence, okay, those of you that believe in me, well, here's the proof. You have to continue in my word, and then if you continue in my word, the truth will set you free. Then the Jews responded by saying, we are Abraham's seed, and we have never been in bondage. Crazy. And then Jesus says, he that committed sin is the servant of sin. Now, I have to understand the context of the statement, because the context of the statement basically says that these are religious people who follow the law of God. So they say they have the law of God, they have the precepts of God, and in reality, they're not following them. And the reason why they're not following them is because it is impossible for them to follow, because they are servants or slaves of sin. Now, of course, we know from the broader revelation that came because of Adam. So then Jesus makes this statement, then, I know that you are the descendants of Abraham. Now he's getting ready to drop some further revelation for us here. I know you the descendants. I asked the question then, which is interesting because during this time, they were able to show by genealogy that they were the physical descendants of Abraham. They were able to show that by genealogy. Now, as we're getting ready to see, that's not going to matter. The hypocrisy, not going to matter. But as we will see, as we will see that Jesus, um, well, I'm jumping ahead. Let me finish my thought here, and then I'm actually going to cover this. So, but as what I said was today, because many Christians then believe that 1948 was when Israel was declared a nation, right? That was a prophetic significance. So then I'm saying that the people who occupy the land today, do they have genealogies to trace back to Abraham, thus showing that they are the physical descendants of Abraham? If they cannot do that, then they cannot prove that they are the descendants of Abraham. Thus, 1948 means nothing prophetically, because they're not the real Jews. Okay, so, and then we left off last time with, I'm showing you genealogies, okay? Just dozens of genealogies. This is a good example of this here. There are certain genealogies. Now, the purpose of the genealogy, as far as scriptures is concerned, then when you come out of that, but here we go. The purpose of the genealogies was, the main point was to show the bloodline of Jesus. And then other genealogies demonstrated bloodlines away from Jesus. So now, as I'm saying, I have not seen any genealogies, and I don't know if they have them today or not. It is possible that those Jews today, those living in the land today, do have genealogies. I'm just saying, I don't know if we've ever seen them. Okay, so let me go back. I'm going to start at verse 30 again, just so it says, and as he was saying these things when he believed in him, so Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, if you continue in my word, you really are my disciples. You will know the truth will set you free. We are descendants of Abraham, they answered, and we have never been enslaved to anyone. Now, there's a falsehood, and there's the truth. The truth is they were the physical descendants of Abraham. But as far as saying that they've never been enslaved to anyone, they were enslaved in the sense of the Roman world as they spoke those words. He said, how can you say you will become free? Jesus responded, verse 34, I assure you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin, right? So this is kind of where we left off, that he drops a spiritual truth on them, that you are a slave of sin. So the fact that you are physical descendants of Abraham doesn't mean anything because you are a slave of sin, which their entire history proved this. The entire history from their inception, you go back to the book of Exodus, you actually go back, of course, to Genesis 12, you see the corruption of sin. As a nation, you see sin, which was why they were always in trouble. They were always conquered, right? Generation after generation after generation, they would be conquered. They would cry out to the Lord. The Lord would have mercy upon them. Finally, the Babylonian exile, they get wiped out completely. And now, even now, the Pharisees, who were the holy people of God, were following in the same suit. So he says, you are a slave of sin. And in verse 35, a slave does not remain in the household forever, but a son does remain forever. Very interesting, because we know through other scriptures that what Jesus is talking about is you may be the physical descendants of Abraham, but you're not children of Abraham, as he's getting ready to disclose. Why? In the book of Galatians, we see that the true sons of Abraham are those who are of faith. And Jesus is getting ready to blast them because he says, well, if you were truly sons, then here's your actions would reflect that. But I am getting ahead. Verse 35 again, a slave does not remain in the household forever. So you are a slave of sin. He says, but the son does remain forever. Therefore, if the son sets you free, you really will be free. I know you are descendants of Abraham. And this is kind of where we left off. He's not squabbling that, but he's going to say you're not the children of Abraham. You're not the sons of Abraham. I know that you're a descendant of Abraham, but you are trying to kill me because my word is not welcome among you. Right? They're rejecting. And by the way, the Pharisees knew who Jesus was. They didn't have any problems with understanding. They knew who Jesus was, but notice they rejected. Verse 38, I speak what I've seen in the presence of the Father. Therefore, you do what you have heard from your father. Now, they probably don't understand yet, but he's getting ready to explain what he means by this statement. You are the physical descendants of Abraham, but you're not the children of Abraham. And thus, who is your spiritual father? He says, I know I'm speaking from God. I'm sent from God. I'm speaking his words. You're not reflecting that, but you're speaking what you have heard from your father. And then verse 39, he says, this is what they reply, our father is Abraham. Jesus replies, if you were Abraham's children. Now remember, he's not debating that they're the physical descendants of Abraham. But he says, but if you were Abraham's children, Jesus told them, you would do what Abraham did. Now stop. So what exactly did Abraham do? Abraham believed God. That's what Abraham did. He believed God. Abraham believed God. They're not believing God. He said, but now you're trying to kill me. Now he's getting ready to tell him. So the fact that you're trying to kill me, right? He said, the man who has told you the truth that I heard from God, Abraham did not do this. You're doing what your father does. So he's kind of leading them up, right? Stringing them along. Who is your father? He's getting ready to tell them. But he's also going to reveal that their actions is what is demonstrating who their father truly is. And notice, not Abraham. Abraham believed, right? Abraham believed, thus Abraham was of faith. Let me show you how true this revelation is. Because Paul would later teach this, of course, in the New Testament. Paul would teach this. Okay, look at verse 6. Just as Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him for righteousness, then understand that those who are of faith are Abraham's sons. Okay, now I can go on with that. I'll stop it there. So this is the revelation. Jesus is laying the foundation. He says, the proof is you're trying to kill me. And if you go back and you ask, why, and he's going to ask him, but why? What is your motivation? You claim to be of God. You claim to know the words of God. So, verse 39, Abraham is our father. They replied, if you were Abraham's children, Jesus told them, you would do what Abraham did. He said, but now you're trying to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. Abraham didn't do this. You're doing what your father does. We weren't born of sexual immorality, they said. We have one Father, God. Notice their mentality here. Despite that they are fighting against God. Remember, Jesus says, I'm expressively sent here to represent God, to speak God's words. And they are vigorously fighting against it. Jesus said to them, Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me because I came from God and I am here. I didn't come of my own, but he sent me. So yes, the question is, why don't they love God when he represents everything about God? In other words, well, what did Jesus do wrong for them to hate him to the point that they were trying to kill him? Well, Jesus is revealing why. Because they're not the true children of Abraham. That in reality, they are sons, we're going to say this, of the devil, because they are doing what the devil is doing. Verse 42, if God were your father, you would love me because I came from God. It says I came from God and because I came from God and I am here. For I did not come of my own, but God sent me. Why don't you understand what I say? Because you cannot listen to my word. And then now you are of your father, the devil. And you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and has not stood in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he speaks from his own nature because he is a liar and the father of liars. Now, let me go back because, again, he just dropped some truth, didn't he? All right, he just dropped some truth. Again, if Abraham were your father, then you would love me. But what? He said, if God were your father, then you would love me. You would readily see that I came from God. And the question is, why don't you see that? See, why don't you see that? He said, the reason why you can't see that is because you cannot grasp my word. And the reason why you cannot grasp my word is because your father, your true nature, comes from your spiritual father, the devil. And it's interesting that he does use the word devil here, because the word devil means adversary. Now, Satan, when you go back to the origins of sin, that Satan, or the morning star, and there's some debate whether or not Lucifer is a correct title, but the word Lucifer itself means morning star. He introduced sin into God's creation. And then that sin was introduced into the earth, into humanity, by Adam. Okay, so that's the bloodline, the spiritual bloodline. So even though they were the physical descendants of Abraham, they did not have his nature because they were not of faith. So Lucifer, now watch this. So Lucifer, over time, had different surnames. So you got Lucifer, the morning star. You have Satan, which means adversary. Then you have the devil, which means accuser. So the fact that he says, you have your father the devil, why? Because you are an accuser. He also can call them Satan because they are an adversary. They are an adversary against all that is holy and good. So he says, so you get back to Satan, and one of the most perplexing wonders is, again, how we know that the devil, you can say Lucifer, generated sin. But why? How did that happen? Now, we could say because when you give people free will, the ability to choose, okay, it kind of doesn't explain why he chose sin, though. And I think that's kind of a mystery. When you have everything, so like Adam, like Lucifer, was the highest created being at that time, right? The highest created being. He was perfect in wisdom, perfect in beauty. God created him so. So why did he entertain the thought that that wasn't good enough? Now we can ask the same thing with Adam. Adam, was the highest created being on planet Earth, and yet he chose to sin. Like, why did that happen? How did that happen? How could that happen? You say, why, how, and why did that happen? So, again, that remains a great mystery to me. Yeah, that remains a great mystery to me. A great mystery. I can't. Ooh, yes. All right. So I'm going to pick this up in the next study and continue on, because Jesus, again, he drops this truth on him, and anyway. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below.